Here we go, episode 12, SomeBuddies Podcast, recovery podcast, lifestyle, spirituality, a bunch of other shit podcast. First off, like, comment, and subscribe. My brother gave me some analytics, told me to speed up my bullshit in the front of the podcast so we can have better retention. So we're going to get right into it, right? Mm-hmm. First off, shout out to our sponsors, Rich Print Shop. They made these shirts. Shout out Rise Barber Shop, All Construction, and the Wu-Tang Clan.
Wu-Tang forever.
In the building. All right, so we're going to get right into it. So topic for this podcast and something that'll be a good topic. We got a guest in the building, my man, Nicky Mack. We'll get into a little bit about his process with us, but I want to talk about resistance and recovery. I was going to say resistance in early recovery, but there's resistance throughout recovery, right? Being in a process of any type of change. And if you're listening to this and you're not in recovery, just resistance in general, right? Stepping out of your comfort zone to make strides and steps towards making positive changes in your life. And so especially in the addiction field, the resistance, it's apparent right out the gate. I've experienced it. It was my repetitive cycle consistently. I call it the internal versus external shift, coming straight from a program or a detox. When I go into a facility, and the first surveillance that I suffer from something that's extremely fucked up internally, the disease of addiction, whatever you want to call it, substance use disorder, is the appearance of resistance in spite of what the fuck just happened prior to me coming into wherever it is that I'm landing. It's like we have this thing inside of us internally that wipes away all the data that was just collected prior to us arriving at that specific point to tell us that we're essentially fucked in the mind. And so what happens, and you guys can chime into this, is I call it like our disease arrives in a state of resistance, and it comes to us and provides this alternate plan of action for us that's going to eventually bring us to a place of sanity or new thinking. And so especially early on, where we go from this inner internal motivation, because we no longer want to think and feel the way that we're thinking and feeling, right? We're out there, we're doing fucked up things, we're living a fucked up life, we're doing things with people, places, and things that we don't want to be doing things with. We're living outside of our moral compass and all this bullshit, right? And we become internally motivated to change, and that shift happens real quick. It's like, I used to have this counselor back in the day, my first time in treatment. His name was Brian Tellis, and he used to go before every group, old school Boston guy, used to say, just because you're shitting solid doesn't mean your shit's together. He used to say that before every group. And I used to be like, this dude's a fucking idiot. But it's the truth, right? The second we start to feel better, it's like our motivation shifts from the internal to the external, right? And the disease that affects us in thought form, and untreated disease will give us this thing where we start to attach truth to thought form, especially when we're trying to sort through our own clutter to get to our own clarity, right? So we're presenting the alternate plan of action that's obviously a lot more comfortable and appealing to us than what is suggested, right? Because someone like Justin would suggest to me in early recovery that I have to go deep. I have to get in touch with some things internally that are going to affect me in the long term, and that it's a toll that I must pay, because pay me now, pay me later.
You're going to pay me.
You're going to pay the fucking toll. And that's just, we talked about it last week. We'll talk about it again this week. But part of paying the toll is the commitment to a process of change, right? And so we'll be surrounded by all these people, like guys in this room, that have surrendered at some point and taking the necessary actions to change, that have evidence to show that these suggestions work, right? The evidence is their life and the way that they're feeling and how they're living. And we'll be surrounded by that, but something inside of us presents to us an alternate plan of action. And it usually sounds something like, get the muscles, get the ladies, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Get on the juice, get the fresh kicks, get whatever the fuck it is. Or I have to get back, I have to get home, I have to get back to my job, I have to get back to my kids. I have a plethora of all these excuses that tries to expedite a process that cannot be expedited, because everything happens in what, Justin?
In time.
In time. And we try to bypass that, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. God works in time.
God
The
works in
universe
time.
works in time. Time and space, you look at quantum mechanics, all this stuff, it all ties into time. Time is one of the things that we need to tap into. But I think also it falls into lack of belief in self. And so it's just like choosing the easier path of failure, because we're so scared of the unknown.
Absolutely. And that comes down to, we talked about it last week. We brought it up. What is fear? Fear is the lack of understanding. The more we understand, the less there is to fear, right? But to understand means we have to take the time to put in the work.
No, for sure.
And it has to, and repetition is the mother of all skill. And we have to be repetitive in pursuit, right? And first and foremost, especially in early recovery, why the resistance component is so fucked is because that is the most important time, right? To become a student to what it is that you suffer from. We have to become students to this shit, right? Especially like we're talking to addicts right now, alcoholics, whoever the fuck's listening to this. So in order for us to understand what is required, right, we have to understand the depths to which our darkness goes to understand what is required from us to get back to the light. So you have to understand how it is that we suffer. We have to know for a fact how we suffer, so you can know what is the what is required from me now to no longer suffer like that. For me, I suffer in here. Right? That's where I suffer first and foremost. And my suffering is self-inflicted. How is it self-inflicted? When I don't understand that I have this thing that is a disease of the mind, I start to give power to thought, right? Mm-hmm. I give power to thought by allowing myself to sort through my shit by myself. And in turn, the repetitive nature of thought, I start to give truth, right? Untrue fucked up thought then becomes untrue fucked up emotion that I feel, which then becomes untrue fucked up interactions with people around me in the life that I live. I create this reality and this narrative that's not real.
But they're not untrue because it's the dichotomy. It's perception is reality. So
Yes.
what your perception is creates reality, even though it's not the fucking truth.
Exactly.
So it's like a dichotomy. It's like two things exist at the same time that contradict each other, but they both exist.
It's the saying, whether you think you can or you can't, either way you're right.
Correct.
Yeah. 100%. I like that you said resistance in early recovery, then switch it to just resistance in life, because the whole time you guys have been talking, I'm just thinking in my head of when I was early and now, and how there's resistance then. The difference was the dialogue in my head when I was early to learning about anything at a meeting or anything step work wise. I only had bullshit in my head. I've never had sifted through it or met someone like Justin or Drew or these guys that had time. So exactly what you're saying. I only had negative things, and I would just think that that's true.
Yep.
And then as I got a little bit more familiar with working a program, and actually, when I came back a year or two later and was actually willing to do some step work, I noticed that shit started to change in my mind. Right? We always say that. My disease, it's my voice. I talk to myself all the time, but for years, my voice was always so negative. And even though it can be negative nowadays, which is normal for things to just pop in, I also know that that's not the truth, and I also have some coping skills. So, to put it, where I can combat that. I know that it's not the truth. I know that you have to fight through it.
Well, and the truth is that our resistance is built in our belief of ourselves, and since we don't believe in ourselves, I don't know about you, but it's hard to stand up for doing the right thing. It's a fucking challenge.
For sure.
It's way tougher to stand up for doing the right thing than to fucking just act like what the fuck ever. Yeah, it's fucking stupid. Oh, fucking spirituality's fucking stupid. It's like, dude, no, it's not. It's the fucking meaning of life. But when we come in, we're so insecure that our insecurities come out with walls of fucking tough guy.
Of course.
And we're all fucking tough guys. You know what I mean? Myself included. But the walls are actually insecurity. It's just masked insecurity of us, ways that we've formed to deal with life on life's terms to try to protect ourselves because life hasn't been going the way that we want. And then we come in, but we resist the doing the right thing. I don't know what it is about us, but I still resist. There's a piece of me that wants to hold on to fucking, being some fucking image of somebody. You know
Perception.
what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's human nature. But this is also a good segue into our guest, Nick McIntyre, in the building, because my first experience with Nick Mac back in the day, and I identify so much with his story because he got clean young, right? Well, his first attempt when he was coming around, he was very young. And he actually had a sweet ponytail. It was probably down to the back of his shoulders. But I saw this young kid come in with resistance, right? But there was something that drew him into to recovery, and it was more so the connections in the community and the unconditional love. But there wasn't the complete understanding of, okay, how can I apply this shit and work this shit? So there was still that program that I watched from the outside. It was like a surface program, right? Like I'm gonna tap my foot in the water, but I ain't gonna fully jump in because it's the fear component, right? I don't understand completely how this works, nor will. And I'm just speaking in terms of what I saw. I don't know what was to be true, but I seen a lot of that resistance. And then I seen when you finally came back. I think it was 22 when you finally got clean for.
No, it was 21.
21.
The first time you came, you were 19, weren't you?
I was, I think it was 20. It was the end of 2014, and then 2015 I turned 21.
Okay.
So when I came back, I was 21.
And I watched this dude with that tough guy bravado that like very masked, right? You were very masked for a while. I knew I liked you, but I always felt walls, right? I'm an empath. I feel energy. Like I know when I can get so close to a person before it's like they put the walls up and stuff like that. And then there was this point of surrender that I watched you go through this process of like doing this. And then I got to see an emotional side. Like you started to tap into, and that's one of my favorite things, because when you got this, you got it. And it was a matter of the transparency and your truth, right? And I watched you early on get to a place in recovery that it takes people fucking years to get to, right? Because of the insecurities, because of the mask that we wear, and we have to unravel all these narratives that we've created about ourselves by ourselves, right? This persona and perception that we're trying to live up to without even understanding of who we really are. We're just created this character of who we want to play because we think that that's universally accepted, right? Mm-hmm. And then I watched you when you first, and at a young age too, because I got clean at 22, but Chris didn't start talking like this. Chris didn't start talking like this till he was like 26, 27. I carried the perception thing for a long fucking time. And then all of a sudden I seen you just getting real and raw and in touch with your, it was like every time you shared, you would get emotional and you would just talk about like real struggles where you were at. And then I watched you continuously do that as you started to put together a year and even more than that, because that's the other trap, right? Because the disease will start to tell you like you have X amount of time, you're no longer allowed to be sick in any way, right? So it's a new perception that's developed. There's the perception like, I don't want you to view me in this way, and then there's a new perception like I can no longer be viewed, whatever the fuck it is. We're always setting these bars that we have to live up to, that we're the only ones that care about, right? Mm-hmm. And so I watch you get in touch with the most important thing, right? The antidote to this shit, I believe, is connection, honesty, and relentless communication. And if you can master those three things, like you can get clean, stay clean, and never have to use again, and flourish internally, and go on to live a life beyond your wildest dreams. And I've watched your process of that. So, like, I'd like to, like, for you to tap into, like, what was the change for you coming around early with the initial resistance, and then, like, when did it click? Like, what happened for you?
Yeah, so like early on in recovery, like coming around, it was definitely like I was set in my ways, like most of us are, you know. Like you talked about the walls, like the walls were definitely, I was definitely guarded. I didn't want anybody to see the true me because I was afraid, you know, exactly what people might think about me, and what that might look like. But then you're talking about, you know, how I really started, you know, digging into the program, and definitely doing the steps was huge for me because, you know, the steps definitely teach you, you know, spiritual principles. And I believe that's definitely something that most addicts are born without. You know, and my belief is that some people are born with spiritual principles and some people are missing them when they're born. Some people are just naturally good at doing things in life and walking through it a certain way, you know, without any of resistances, and being able to take, you know, word from somebody else and using that towards their life to make a better life for themselves. And I believe I was one of those people that were born without the spiritual principles, you know, that we learn about, you know, through the program that we practice. And then slowly, you know, seeing the people around me that started doing better and like putting in the work, and I can see the ways that it worked in their life and the way that their life just got brighter, you know, and they almost had an aura to them. I think that's what drove me, you know, towards really wanting to do better for my life.
Why do you think you were born without spiritual? Is it because they weren't instilled in you? Was it the upbringing? Like, what was it?
Maybe partially.
I don't fully agree with you there, Nick.
That's fine.
I think, well, let me tell you why. Because I think that it's our belief systems that we learn that counteract, like we essentially build who we are based on belief systems that we learn. And so a lot of addicts, I don't know, I'm just speak for myself, when you start to experience darkness and trauma early on, you start to put up walls and your belief systems start to become I'm fucking not okay. I'm not enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. It could be as simple as your father not showing up to football games. It doesn't have to be you lived in foster care. It literally, but as a result of that, you start to form belief systems about yourself. And then your belief systems about yourself are about putting up walls and not being able to be who you are. There are other people you talked about that probably got nurtured a little bit more in the home and were brought up with some belief systems to believe in themselves, and the people around them believed in them also, and they nurtured it, and it became a part of their view of themselves. Because at the end of the day, it's like, how are you viewing yourself? And so most addicts that I know, our belief systems got screwed up early on, and we didn't feel okay. And the second we went to school, we felt out of place. And the second we went, it's like the story's the same. It seems like over and over and over. We felt out of place from the get. What the cause of that was is different for everyone. And for some people, it doesn't have to be some crazy deep thing. Science is proving that children can experience trauma from small little things at this point. So, but what we perceive about ourselves, you could even get deep. You could even get deep and say you might even be experiencing trauma from fucking past lives and shit.
Justin can go there.
So
don't go there. Don't go there. Don't go there.
I'm not going there. But
let me stop you there, just so we don't change the subject. But it's definitely another way to look at it that, you know, I'll definitely be open-minded about, because, you know, it could be anything for me, you know, being younger as a kid, like not having like always like a solid, you know, father figure in my life, and definitely some kind of trauma in that way. So I agree with you 100%. You know, it could be that too.
Well, because I think that,
and I just don't like to pass blame on anybody else. So, you know, I guess I just take that on by saying, you know, it's my belief that,
well, because
you know,
in knowing
I didn't
you,
do it the right way.
In knowing you and knowing everybody in this room, we're all fucking amazing people. You know what I mean? We're all like, dude, we're all born. But energetically, dude, we're all born amazing fucking people and spirits. And then we learn about ourselves. And what we learn about ourselves is fucking just misguided and wrong for a lot of us. Well, and then we're backtracking on it for the fucking rest of our lives. That's what we're
Well, I can pinpoint where I went dark. I know the age that I was. I remember it was a baseball game. My biological father used to always come to my baseball games, and he used to stand in the fence and like give me, and he disappeared, and he went to college, but actually college was prison, but they didn't tell me that. So then he was just gone from my life. And then my brother Nico was born, and so I felt I saw like a different way in the way that my stepfather handled him, and so it was like I lost two dads in a short course of time. And I remember going dark. Like, I remember the internal warfare that's probably as far back as I can remember those moments, you know, and like internally I changed. And it was like activation of like full disease mode. You know, I believe I was born this way, but I believe that it takes, I think some people are born with the disease of addiction, but there's never a sequence in their life that triggers it to go off, you know what I mean?
Well,
maybe it'll experience it later in life, but that's why I was asking, was there something that made you I didn't know if...
Yeah, so I mean, it could be something like that. Like, my father wasn't really there too much, you know, when I was growing up, and I have an older brother, he's 3 years older than me, and he kind of tried to take that role. And, you know, we talk about resistance, and, you know, I think that's where a lot of resistance came into my life, because, you know, he's trying to be, you know, that father figure, and I kind of put it off like, no, you're supposed to be my brother.
Yeah.
You
Did
know,
you feel like you couldn't live up to him?
You know what? Not early in my life, because I've always had a big ego. So, you know, when it came to like, you know, not necessarily being a better person, but just anything like sports, anything like that, I always just thought I was better than him. Yeah. But maybe later on in life, my brother has accomplished many things in his life that I don't think a lot of people could if they really even try to or want to. And I think at some point in my life when I got a little bit, you know, older, like into like young adulthood, I thought that, you know, I couldn't live up to, you know, the things that he wanted me to do, or the way, you know, he would have liked to see me be raised in that sense. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just another circumstance of where do we learn about ourselves? How do we learn about ourselves? And most of us, when we're young, we're left to interpret. Like, you were left to interpret what happened to your two fathers, you know, and you interpreted there's something wrong with you when there was actually nothing wrong with you. Absolutely nothing wrong with you, you know, but as children, we're left to interpret a lot of things. And this world teaches that, like, we should protect our children, but by protecting our children and not telling them the truth half the time, they perceive there's something wrong with them. Like, your father goes to prison And so he's not showing up anymore, and they're telling you he's on vacation or he's fucking, you know what I mean, out to work. But you perceive that like he just doesn't give a fuck about me because he's not showing up. When at least if it was explained to the child, he's locked up and he cannot visit you. He loves you more than anything. And I'm not blaming anybody, but these are belief systems that we teach that don't protect children. They hurt children. You know what I mean? And there's too many children out there developing the wrong belief systems about themselves. Because the truth is they're amazing. You know, you have children. You know, what are you trying to instill in your children today?
I'm trying to instill everything I possibly can that's positive.
Yeah.
You know, I think I'm trying to be, you know, that role model that I didn't have when I was younger. I think, I mean, it's tough, man, because I'm also going with the flow. I mean, nobody really taught me how to be a father. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of rolling with the punches. You know, I do a little bit of this. I do a little bit of that. I'm very thankful that, you know, my kids have great mothers in their life, you know, so I don't have to take on that role, you know, completely 100%. Because, you know, I feel like there's some times where, you know, I try to be the guy that, you know, like, come on, buddy, like, we got to do it this way. You know, you got to listen. You know what I mean? But then I also have, you know, the mothers in their life that are very nurturing, you know what I mean, and can show them that love. But at the same time, I think that it can be very hard because I almost feel like the bad guy sometimes. You know what I mean? Like when I'm trying to, you know, discipline them and just, you know, teach them, you know, the right ways and stuff. And I get some resistance, you know what I mean, from my kid. And then it's like, it's run to mom and like, mommy, like, show me the love, you know what I mean, that I want.
So in recovery, where, and Chris, I'll let you speak in a second, but like, just because I want to stay on the...
Shut your mouth.
Where did that like what was the transition to go from that point, right? To go from like because I always say eventually you have to make a decision and it's against your will and it's without your own permission. Because if you're waiting for yourself to give you permission to do what's necessary, it's not going to come. So at some point, it's just like Chris just started the gym.
If
you can't tell, you know? Right? That was definitely without his permission.
Yeah.
That was against his will because if Chris had the ability to give himself permission to go to the gym, he would have never stopped going to the gym. And he would have went back 3 weeks ago when he seen the size of these fucking guns right here. You know what I mean?
50 cals.
Yeah. You know, but it's the same in recovery, right? At some point, there was the action that you had to take in spite of what the fuck was going on in here.
Yeah.
So what was that process like? Do you remember at what point or what triggered that? Or
yeah, definitely. I mean, when I had relapsed, you know, the first time that I was at the house, as you guys know, like I wound up going back to jail.
College.
College. I went back to college, and my mother had.
I was sad about that too. You were doing really well.
Yeah.
You were like a young kid who started to believe. You like had a fucking spark.
Yeah.
I remember it like it was yesterday. And like you had started to believe, but then you relapsed. You went back to Rochester and relapsed, didn't you?
No, I went back to Seabrook. I was living in Seabrook at the time.
Yeah.
With my mother. And so like I went back to college and my mother came in to visit me. I had just got beat up in a fight and had just got out of the hole. And I just remember seeing my mother come in and breaking down again. And that broke me. I'm very close with my mother. And it was just... It was a whole bunch of things all intertwined into one that really just broke me because it was myself. You know, I went back to jail, so I was clean again. You know what I mean? And I had the emotions of getting clean again and my brain trying to recoup itself from what was just going on. And I was very emotional. And then my mother just topped it off. And all of us know now that are clean that life's for the birds.
Yeah.
That life fucking sucks. You know what I mean? And that's not hard to realize. You know, when you're first getting clean again, it's easy to forget, but that's not hard to realize. And I know I just decided. I was talking to you guys from the jail. I signed up to do a program in the jail, and I wanted to come straight back. You know, when I got out and really give it a shot because yes, you know, I might have seemed like I was doing very good that first time around. But I wasn't putting in any of the work that I was told about, you know, and the resistance comes from where you're talking about, like, you don't know the unknown, you know what I mean? I never really sat down and had somebody, I mean, I've heard it through people doing commitments and whatnot and talking about it, but I never, you know, I didn't really sit with a sponsor who sat down with me and was like, listen, like, you know, like this is how it's laid out and this is how you get better and this is why. So I gave that a chance when I came back the last time. If you remember, I was still on the colors in Seabrook, and you guys were letting me stay on the couch.
Yep.
You know, and I appreciate that, and I'll never forget that. And that's what I did for the first month until you guys wrote me letters that I could take to the judge saying that I could come back so I can get off the colors and switch probation over here. And that's what I did. And I dove right into it. You know, like I got a sponsor, you know, that time around. And you were talking about, you know, the walls that are around me. Like as I started, you know, putting in the work and slowly, you know, showing myself to people and revealing my truth and being honest, those walls, you know, slowly started to fall down. And that's when, you know, I got a taste of freedom, you know, up here. And it felt so good. It felt so good, you know, after all those years of, you know, hiding everything and you know, just keeping it, you know, depressed and it felt amazing. And I just wanted to keep chasing that. And so I did. And I broke down more walls and I broke down more walls. And I just let myself out there and started learning, you know, those spiritual principles, you know, that we learn, helping other people, just being honest, you know, within ourselves and going back to the past and, you know, tearing open those wounds, you know, some of them that we were talking about, and just bringing it back to me, you know what I mean? And my thought process and how I go about thinking about those things, you know, and learning some of my character defects. And that helped tremendously because I'd find myself in the middle of doing something and, you know, I know it's not right because I learned my character defects and I'm like, Nick, that's your insecurities coming out. You know what I mean? And you start to become conscious of those things. And that's kind of really started how I started getting rolling. You know what I mean? And some things like you started talking about it, like I'll never forget two things from you guys. You know, if I forget everything, I will never forget two things. Justin, you always said, you were just talking about time before. One thing that always resonated with me, and I told myself, you know, I would give myself the chance, is you always said, you know, things happen in time. They don't happen in seconds. They don't happen in minutes. They don't happen in hours or months. They happen in years. They happen in years. And I always think about that, always. Even now, like 5 years later, I'm like, I feel like I should be doing more in my life or I should have more. And obviously that's just coming back to me and my thought process. And you pop in my head. Even if I haven't talked to you in months, you pop in my head and you say, Nick, years. And then another thing I took from you that's huge is you always talked about the peaks and valleys. And that's life, man. Life is peaks and valleys. If anybody fucking ever told me that I was going to get clean and my life was just going to fucking be great, you know, I'm sure I would have believed them, you know what I mean? But that would be false. That's bullshit. You know what I mean? Because I got clean and shit started hurting and life started hurting and life started happening because I was showing up for it. Yeah. And it's the peaks and valleys, man. Like even, you know, this past month I had a conversation with you, J-Mac and Chris, you know, on the porch, you know, just about my life and the shit I was going through. And it's been a tough time for me. It's been a real tough time for me. But I know just from experience and from listening to you, like, yeah, those valleys come, but there's always a peak. And you know what? In the past 5 years, there has always been a peak after those valleys. And as much as I don't want to, and I'm thinking about it like fucking, you know, even though my life's great, because that's just how we are, that my life just sucks right now, and I'm hurting, you know what I mean? And I'm aching. I just hold on, and I just know that there's a peak coming, you know, and I know if I just walk, you know, in the straightest line that I possibly can, that still goes like this. You know, I'm going to get to that peak again.
Well, essentially, it's a call to action, too. The spirit calls out for change, right? And with change comes uncomfortability, and that's the internal, right? That's the internal warfare. We either decide to ignore it, and when we ignore the spirit calling for action, we become depressed, anxiety, all that shit, right? A call to action comes here first. You feel it. It doesn't come from here, because here tells you, like, just do nothing, chill, or go out and feed the pleasures. You know what I mean? Feed into the pleasure system. But this says it's time to make a change, right? It's time to level up in whatever area it is. And I know that I want to talk to Jay real quick, so and let Jay
go get us some water, huh?
Chris, I want to get into, so you guys have good perspective too, early recovery, resistance, and stuff like that. And because it's important, and I want to segue from the early recovery resistance, and then I'm going to take us into, like, with time comes resistance too. Like, this resistance shit doesn't go away, and that's why I talk about being a student to what it is that you suffer from. Because when you understand that the disease is resistance, right? You understand the ways that you have to practice to the things that you have to practice specifically to not feed into the false fucking delusional thinking that will be created internally without our permission. Like, just like we have to do things without our permission, like we have thoughts without our permission. There's shit that comes to mind that I wouldn't choose to think about on any fucking day, yet the thought still comes in, right? Yeah. So and when I say figure out what the practice is, because with recovery specifically, it's not just about practice in any way. It's the people who have that misconception, like that practice makes perfect, but that's bullshit, because it doesn't. Perfect practice makes perfect, because you don't want to practice something the fucking wrong way all day, every day, right? And I think a lot of people get that shit twisted, especially in recovery. They get a basic fucking understanding and knowledge of what this shit is, and they go, oh, I got this, I'm going to come up with my own plan of action. And that's like that set me up for failure many times. I took that bait so many times. And what gets me to take that bait is the resistance, right? So, like, what was it like for, what is your experience with it? You know, like thinking back and then.
My biggest thing, like I was touching on earlier, is that I didn't know any other way. So I was resistant towards things that I would hear other people say that had to do with step work or putting any actual work in, and I just would try the easiest route. It was all a social event for me when I was new to recovery, right? Or I should say to the fellowship, because there was no recovery. I was just showing up, hanging out with people, or different halfway houses I was in, just showing up, whatever meeting the guys were going to, and I'd go with the flow, and I was just being led by guys that were there longer than I was, right? So it's like the blind leading the fucking blind, you know? And I started to hear some things that I could relate to. And, I've already touched on it before as far as, where me and Justin's friendship had started. And it's almost like I started to kind of seek that out, like back then when I was, he's saying he was 21. I was 23 when I first came to meetings. That was back in 2003. There wasn't a shit ton of people that were like a lot younger than that, Yeah, no. Whereas now there's like 16, 17-year-old kids in meetings. And I would just find myself, I'm back in the same shit. I was catching cases, right? And I shared this on a different episode, but actually, this is a different part of it. But I caught a case. I'm in jail for the weekend, and I wanted to be in a meeting, right? I wanted to be in a meeting. I wanted to be with the people that I did meet up until that point that actually were clean, right? Because I was sick of living like that. And, ultimately I ended up going back out and getting high, and something kept drawing me back to want to be back going to meetings, right? And when I finally came back, I was like so happy to see people like Justin. And then right after that's when, we had met and our process started, and linking back up with Drew, which is a good friend of ours, and been friends with him for a long time. He's always been there for me and loved me right up. And something had clicked where I was like, you know what? Everything that I fucking was so resistant for, I went head on for. And it literally, and I'm, saying peaks and valleys, it's like, shit, you ain't kidding. Because I'm thinking, I just do step work. All these people that have time are telling me to do step work, get a sponsor, right? All this stuff. And I did it, but life hit me. People died. Relationships ended. Had to get the get well job, right? Was resistant to that. I just wanted to go back to cutting hair, and someone was like, in time. Those were the type of things that were being said, And I put together all that time from doing that and being the opposite of resistant. I just went head on. But you saying that word just struck up something, because I can still be super resistant today, big time. I was resistant for a while with this whole move from Florida to come back up here, and it had been telling me here for a while to go back to doing what you enjoy, but there was a lot of things that were in the way, and I was just being resistant.
Well, but it's mankind beliefs are teaching us not to listen to this and do it. You know what I mean? Like, you're supposed to just do exactly what you're supposed to.
Yeah, do what's safe. Do what's
safe. Don't take risks. But doing what's safe for an addict is pleasure seeking. Yeah. That's what safety for us is. So like, we don't, and then you give people a path. You're like, get on 93 fucking south and you're going to end up fucking in paradise. but we just see every fucking McDonald's there fucking is and just keep fucking getting off. We have no faith that, you know what I mean? So like, you can give people direction, but until they come to believe that they can get there, unless you know where you're going, you're never going to fucking get there. So there has to be some belief that I can, you know what I mean? I can do this. I'm going to make a decision. Like you talked about making a decision. It's like, you got to make a fucking decision. You got to decide. I'm fucking doing this. I'm fucking doing this. I'm changing my life. I've never seen anybody who puts in the work fail. It's impossible. But you have to decide to put in the work. And like when you're wishy-washy about it, you can't. Dude, this disease is the strongest disease on the fucking planet. You need every power within you. God, you know what I mean? That's why they call it spiritual. Because you need to tap into your spirit, and you need other people's spirits. And you go for a ride that's in deep internal meaning that goes against everything you've been taught. Because everything you've been taught is just fix your fucking life, fix your life, get a good job.
But it's not as a matter of making a conscious decision, and it's tough, right? Because if and I believe that it could be an imprint of like teachings and stuff like that down the line. I just think inherently we're wired with a protective nature internally that keeps us away from experience any negative emotions, whether we were taught whatever we were taught. It's like I can remember as far back as possible. Even when I was little in the 3rd grade, there was a girl named Sony Knopp that I had a crush on, and I wanted to hand her a Valentine, and I was going to, but my head talked me out of it because she was like, I can think back to the 3rd fucking grade and that exact moment.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And the protective thinking and the internal warfare was coming from a place that didn't want me to experience the negative emotions that would come with rejection.
Yeah, it's safe to not. It's safe to not do it.
It's safe, right?
Yeah.
And something internally is wired within me like that. I'm going to segue to Christopher Ledoux just because we got him a new mic. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him a new mic in the building. Yep.
Nick, you said a lot of stuff, and Justin, too.
Thanks, Chris. So back to Nick.
Oh, man.
Fuck out of here.
Fuck out of here.
No, I mean, there was a lot of stuff that was said. You guys, like, I know Justin's story, you know, foster care system, like Chris talking about his dad going to college and stuff, and J-Mac's upbringing, and, like, you know, Nick, your upbringing, and like, dude, I had 2 parents that, you know, I didn't come from a split home. Like I had like all the support and love. And when I hear you guys share, I'm just like, how did I end up, right? And then I pinpoint it to, you know, when Nicole passed away in a car accident. And because I was brought up in a household, like Catholic household, like God's everything. And I was forced to do it, right? So like I had an introduction to like what God was. And that's changed, you know, when I got clean. But like, I felt my insecurities came out when that event happened, and it carried over throughout my whole entire drug use, right? But it breaks my heart when I think about, like, you know, you guys had a bad life, but troubling events happened to you, and like upbringing, and like I had all the support, right? But when that event happened when I was 16, right, I started comparing myself to my brothers, right? I started trying to like strive to be like them, and then the negative self-talk, which had always been there my whole entire life. Like, you're never going to amount to nothing. They're always going to be better to you. You know, your parents love them more. Like, those insane thoughts, I can remember happening when I was a little kid. I remember annoying my brothers just to get attention from them because I thought they didn't care about me and love me, right? And the resistance, like, it obviously still happens to this day, but like I remember, you know, being afraid to expose who I was, which you guys have all talked about, right? Not letting people in, right? Having those barriers and walls up and those masks, the stage characters you hear. And still to this day, like, if I get put in an awkward, like, position or, like, meeting new people, like, I feel like I have to walk on eggshells because I don't want to expose the full truth, right? Which boils down to, like, my own insecurities and what work am I putting in. And it definitely... you can tell when I'm not doing work because I become very reserved and like very standoffish about like how much I expose myself, right? But I remember my sponsor asking me, he's like, "What do you love about yourself?" And I was sitting in rehab. I'm like, I don't know. He's like, "What do you hate about yourself?" I'm like, "How much time you got?" Right? I didn't know who the fuck I was, and he told me to keep when people would speak, right? They come into Keystone. And they'd have significant time. What did you do? What did you do to stay clean today? And what does your recovery look like? And everyone who had significant time, they all worked a program. They all had a sponsor. They sponsored guys. And I don't know if it was just like, this is my first time, like, I went to treatment, one treatment center. I went to 8 detoxes, and I think in a year and a half, and on the 8th time I finally got it, but I would always AMA. But I feel like I was just so broken down that like I was just willing to do anything. And it wasn't willing at first, and it took a while for me to surrender because I was still like, you know, Chris knows best. Chris knows best. I was still obsessing about the next one, even though I'd been taken away from the drugs and alcohol for 2 weeks. But remaining teachable is huge. Because like I love the external stuff. That external stuff takes me away from myself, right? But how long is that happiness gonna last? You know, you were busting my balls. I brought up the infinity, right? And I got all butthurt about it. But you know, like
And
that, yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, it's not. And I understood your point too. But like little things like that, like I know it's not gonna cause happiness, but those are like little milestones in my life. Like little things like, you know, getting a car payment and being able to do that. Because I always told myself, you're never going to be able to afford a car. You're going to be late on your payments, right? Your bank account's going to go negative. You know, recently I got pre-approved for a mortgage, right? Never thought I would ever do that.
There has to be external milestones as well as internal milestones.
you
you don't want to be
I agree.
The internal milestones is me finding out who I was, and that took time and working on myself.
And external milestones can be the process of coming to believe in yourself.
Yeah, of
at the end of the
course.
day,
That's
because
huge.
now you're accomplishing more and more, and you'll come to learn you're capable of accomplishing whatever you want.
Yeah.
And I just want to
That's
go back to something as far as like the upbringing and stuff like that. Like, don't get it twisted. I'm going back, and my perception of when I was little was what it was, right? My house was filled with love. My stepfather.
Yeah.
I understand now, having had a daughter, and the difference of love that's required to a newborn.
Yeah.
And like a young child, like the developmental process, like I just was so naive, and as a little boy I perceived it as abandonment. It wasn't abandonment. I understand that my mother, they handled it the best of their ability and stuff like that, and my stepfather loved me unconditionally and provided for me and all that. But my disease was triggered with the internal dialogue that, like we said, it's not like at 7 or 8 that I understood that I have a disease that talks to me on my own voice, and it's gonna come to me. It's gonna give me negative self-talk, and I didn't have any. I wasn't equipped, so therefore I attached truth to everything that I would thought when I was a little boy, and it became my internal reality, and it became my external reality. And so I acted as if it wasn't true. I acted as if I wasn't loved, or I didn't have dads, or I did that for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, and that was a lack of understanding, right? And the profound effect of like how powerful this thing is that we suffer from, right? That the mind can create and dictate not only the emotions that we feel, but the life, the reality of the life that we're actually living.
Yeah.
And it's the importance of understanding why we have to do this shit against our will, and what we're being resistant to, right? Mm-hmm. And we also have to understand what we resist persists, whether negatively or positively, and that there is a certain it's with anything. It's like when you're talking about surrendering, and you're talking about, it's like, how do we get to that place of surrender, and what am I surrendering to? Like, first and foremost, we have to surrender to the fact that we can't do this alone, right? Mm-hmm. The importance of connection. We have to fucking connect, because without the dialogue of truth, then there is no opportunity to learn anything. Because the first thing that we must do is get rid of the bullshit that is in our head, and understand that it's not fucking real, right? So there's so many narratives that we have to, like, I mean, dude, if we have our self-discovery process since we known each other has been fucking ridiculous. The narratives that we've unraveled over time and time, the perception of who we think we are, who we thought we were portraying ourselves to be,
who we became in recovery.
Who we became in recovery.
You know what I mean?
When ego was developed, when I started to have money, when I didn't have money, when I got scared, it was like all these different versions of, and these different layers of protection and defense mechanisms that I had no understanding of a long time ago. But when you have an understanding, we're no longer ignorant to what must be done, right? You were equipped with the tools this last time. You were equipped with the tools. Like, we have the tools now, right? And the most important, like, with anything in resistance and with anything is a process of finding your people, right? And the best way to find your people is through transparency of your truth. I have people talk to me all the time about, like, and I just talked about this last podcast, like, I expose my truths the most without fear of isolation, because I'd rather isolate myself from the people that ain't with it, so I can hurry up and find the people that can be down with me, because I need those people that can be down with me. If I'm gonna isolate myself from half the room, but the other half can empathize and connect, that was worth the isolation, because I found the people that are going to be a part of my path and process that will help me. Mm-hmm. And that's like, And with those people comes a defense mechanism against the resistance. It's why J-Mac's one of my best friends and been one of my closest friends since I got clean, because this motherfucker is a bug. When he's doing recovery, he doesn't shut the fuck up about when you don't go to meetings, or you haven't done this, or you coming tonight? You going to do this meeting? Or if you commit to something, he holds you accountable. It's like, I need people like that in my life, because left to my own devices, I don't give a fuck how long you have clean. Yeah. And those walls that you let down, do they stay down? No, they come right the fuck back up. Yep. And the only way they stay down is if we put the right people around.
Or you create new ones. You can create new walls in recovery of like who you are in recovery. All of a sudden you can 100%. Like you were a shitbag, and now you're fucking this great fucking recovery speaker who can't tell your fucking truth because you fucking set expectations that people put you on this pedestal, you know what I mean? And now you're trapped. Whatever you deny, you actually just mentioned something. It's like whatever you deny strengthens. So, and there's a book actually that's power versus force. And it talks about feelings, and they've actually measured feelings. And the lowest vibration of feeling, the feeling that will make you feel worse in this world, is shame and guilt. Shame and guilt. And we feel shame and guilt about ourselves, so we don't want to tell our truth. Yet when we tell our truth, we instantly elevate to hope. Yeah. You know what I mean? When we tell our truth, we're in solution. But it's counterproductive. You have to embrace what's wrong with you to get what's right with you. But our society doesn't teach you to embrace what's wrong with you, to embrace your darkness. Carl Jung is very into this. If you look at Carl Jung's work, your shadow self, it's like by embracing your darkness, you get to the light, because you are the fucking light. At the end of the day, literally, you are the answer, but we're so scared to be ourselves that we just deny ourselves. And as a result, we create a perception of ourselves of like, it's in recovery, it's a bad habit. We've taught it wrong sometimes, where it's like people create these images of themselves and then they can't tell their fucking truth. Yeah. And it's like, so for me, I've always subscribed to, I'll fucking talk about myself before you, but you know what I mean? I just talk about myself in meetings. I'll talk about me before you talk about me. It's kind of like the Eminem shit. Yep. You know what I mean? It's
the
like
8 Mile recovery. Yeah.
8 Mile recovery.
Rabbit.
And Chris is the dude that went to a really nice school. Chris had both
Clarence parents.
Clarence, yeah. Chris is Clarence.
Really nice parents.
Fuck out of here.
Anytime I have a resistance now, though, I feel like it's based out of fear.
Oh, that's
1,000%.
It's always fear, uncomfortability, and it comes with all that. But you were just touching on something.
Putting people on pedestals.
Oh, we become prisoners to perception, right? Prisoners to perception, which creates a new form of resistance, and that comes in time, right? That's the segue into like, so there's early recovery persistence due to a lack of understanding. Early recovery resistance due to a lack of understanding, and that's the fear, right? Fear is a lack of understanding. And so there's a resistance with that, because we have to now go to a place where we're willing to allow ourselves to be seen completely, because they're telling us that there's one key that opens all the doors in recovery. Right, there's some keys that open up some doors, which we know is the basics, that the fundamentals of recovery. Meetings will open up a bunch of doors to get you to a certain extent of where you want to go. Some people are fine with how far those meetings will get them, right? Yeah. They open some doors. Having a sponsor and doing some that, like, those can open up some doors. There's only one key that opens up every fucking door, and that is transparency and your truth, relentless honesty about where you're at, and staying in that place of being transparent with yourself. You're never obligated to be anything other than what you actually are. And I bang that into people's heads, and I say it out loud sometimes for myself, because the only person that doesn't give you permission to be truly who you are is yourself, right? Yeah. It's me. I will always stop me from being my true self. Based off of a perception, being prisoner to a perception. I don't want this person to judge me. I don't want you to look at me any differently. Oh, maybe I feel like Chris looks up to me. Maybe I feel like he judges me. Maybe I don't want to empower you or let you down or give you fucking ammo or give you or hurt you. Whatever it is, it's like, that's too much to fucking unravel. And when you just stay in a state of like, of just freely being yourself, it allows you to be, right? And when I mean be, it's just being current in the moment. Mm-hmm. When I'm current in the moment, because ultimately this is the only thing that's real. This is the only thing that'll ever be real, this moment right now. Yeah. And when we're constantly locked into a mindset that will project us, right, where the mind's constantly like, I can't say this, I can't say this, or and they're thinking about back and forth, where you're robbing yourself of the current moment. But when you just go be rabbit, 8 Mile type fucking, and you just put it out there, it's like, okay, it's fucking done with. That's why podcast 1, I was like, my nose is big, my teeth are fucked up, and I'm going bald. It's out.
So-
All right, cool. Now I can enjoy this podcast, right? I'm sensitive, so if you comment on the podcast, it's going to hurt my feelings. All right, just so you know. And I'm not going to read it. Like, I have to get all that shit out because I don't want it to own me, because now guess what? I get to be here with you guys.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. And then even to a further extent in life, I don't want to rob myself of moments. I've already lost a fuck ton of moments, man. Clean, I've lost fucking moments because of this thing, right? Being prisoner to perception. Because I understand that my only freedom from self is the transparency in that and to walk through that fucking fear. So that's the resistance in early recovery, right? Lack of understanding. And then later on, when we develop time, this is for all you motherfuckers that have 5 years, 10 years. And I'm not judging you. This is who I was. I have almost 16 years. Justin has fucking 1,000,005 years. And it's hard. People think like, it says it in our Living Clean book, the process of recommitment to recovery, right? And the resistance that comes with that when we've allowed ourselves to stray it can be sometimes just as hard for someone with time to commit and begin the process of transparency with truth that it is for a newcomer to walk through the doors for the very first time because of the ego, because we're held hostage by whatever it is that whatever pedestal we want to be perceived as and stuff like that. So
how do you open when you share? I always forget it, but you said it once at the I was like, oh my God, it was about like, fuck. You heard it at a speaker jam, I think.
Oh, if I share who
If
I
I
really
tell you
am,
the
will you
truth
still
about
love
me,
me?
will you still love me?
I love that.
Oh yeah, no, I say that, but I also, my favorite, I always go out the gate, especially when a bunch of people tell me they're excited. Oh, I heard you're a good speaker. I heard you're a good speaker. It fucks me up, and my ego wants to. And then I start out by speaking. Whatever your perception is of me, fucking change it. Whatever pedestal you have me on, take me off.
Yep.
Take me off right now because I don't want to be up there. I'm too much of a fuck up to be up there. I will let you down. Do not hold me to any higher standard than you hold yourself. Like, all I can offer you is my truth right now. That's it. And I actually took a dump on that meeting. I remember what meeting it was. I was like, I'm not fucking all right. I'm out of I gave them my truth. It was like people were coming there like ready for me to heal them. And I was like, no, you're getting my fucking, this is where I'm at.
But that's what you needed.
Yeah, but that's how you heal. But honesty is the path to healing yourself. Honesty, when you open up, then you can start to heal. But if you're fucking closed off, you're in denial, you're never going to heal. So it's like, it's the key. It's counterproductive. It's a weird thing. Recovery is a weird thing. But if you look at the state of our world, it's exactly what our world needs. It's like we need to embrace what's wrong to get to what's right. And everybody's fighting right now because we can't agree that we've done wrong.
Yeah.
And we want to deny it. And it's like we have. But there's injustice and there's things happening that we need to fucking be honest about. And just fucking put them on the fucking table and stop fucking debating about them. Let's just fucking own it and let's fucking try to heal together. But we don't want to do that, and we want to fucking deny everything. And no, we're not that fucking bad. This fucking country's fine. Everything's fine. We're fucking fine. And it's like, we're not fucking fine. It's fucking painfully obvious we're not fine. And that we need to be more honest with ourselves as a collective, as a fucking society, to love each other more and to provide like a safer fucking environment where everybody's on a fucking equal playing field because we are all equal.
And honesty is how you reach more people.
Yes.
By you sitting there and talking your truth, I'm gonna relate to somebody that, may seem like they really have, it going on at the moment and everything's going so good, but when they open up about the fucked up thoughts that are going through their head and and the fucked up shit that they might have done in this past month, and they open up about that and they get honest that even though their life is going so well, and other people see them as, doing so well and that they're still flawed and that they can still fuck up, and talk about that. I'm going to relate way more with that than somebody getting up and talking about, oh yeah, I got 7 years and everything's just great. And, I had bought a house and, life is just dandy. Everything's perfect. No, I'm not going to fucking relate to that, because if you are anything like me, I'm sure that there's some evil thoughts that go through your head and that you're not walking a straight of a line that you think you are.
But we have a fundamental issue in the fellowship of old timers just wanting to tell people how the fuck it is and not being honest about what the fuck's going on with them anymore.
I don't relate to that.
It becomes this knowledge fucking dump.
No, that's
and the problem
bullshit.
with knowledge dumps, the problem with telling people how it is then you create hierarchy on who knows the most.
Yeah.
And so it makes someone who's fucking new in recovery not feel safe to share who they are. When it's like, if you got 25 years, but you're just sharing honestly and openly your pain, it gives the fucking allowance for someone else to share themselves
it's
openly
okay.
and honestly. So
And
it's
to
like,
open that up and heal.
exactly, but it's spiritual principles. When we practice spiritual principles, we're all on the same level. We're all equal. But the second we get out of spiritual principles and we want to start fucking theorizing about fucking shit, because at the end of the day, knowledge doesn't equal recovery. It's
Yes.
like, I can fucking talk about recovery all fucking day long, but if I'm not fucking internally practicing it, if I'm not fucking being honest about what's going on with me, and I see this as a fundamental issue sometimes, because I see a lot of people who like, they've gotten some clean time and they're better at this point, and they don't really want to talk about, they're not willing to go any deeper. They don't want to talk about like what's going on in their life anymore. And as a result of that, it stagnates the fucking process for everybody in the meeting.
And that goes back to the pedestal that we were talking about.
Yes.
Putting yourself on a pedestal and then not wanting to be perceived any other way than the way you made yourself out to be.
And I love meetings, and I'm not putting any meetings
No,
down.
you know, I didn't
but I'm
get that.
challenging the fellowships a little bit, like, because we need to get back to the basics of one thing more than anything else will defeat us in our recovery: indifference or intolerance towards spiritual principles. That's what it says.
Anytime I've ever heard anyone share honestly, I relate so much more than someone who can quote the literature, whatever literature it is, right? And I get from both, but like anyone who honestly like, this is how my life is. This is how I got these things out of life: internal happiness, the house, whatever the dream is. But I can feel it when someone's owning their truth and telling the truth. I can feel it. It's the energy they give off. But anyone that goes in and be like, yeah, life's painting a great picture like Jay's painting a fucking mural. Like ups and downs, peaks and valleys. And anytime I've let myself down by putting people on pedestals because it makes them non-human to me. Like, this person's never going to fuck up. I remember this guy got 10 years at a meeting. I was like, this guy's, he's killing it. Brand new truck, talks about his wife, he's got the kids, got all this. Next week he came in and got a 24-hour. And I was devastated. I was fucking devastated. And I put him on that pedestal. He didn't do that. I want to hear the raw truth. I want to hear about how you struggle being a father. I want to hear about how, you know, you're working on a relationship with your wife, trying to fix that stuff. I need to hear that stuff because I'm never going to have the cookie cutter life. I would love that, but stuff's going to happen. Peaks and valleys.
And I want to hear about the work that help you learn those spiritual principles to get you where you are today.
How'd you find happiness in your life?
Because you can be
yourself.
happy. Life is great. We just
Yes.
make it not great.
Well, beyond that, we have 11th step in the fellowship, just to be clear, that tells you to leave the fellowship and go deeper spiritually.
Yeah.
Just to let you know. And going deeper spiritually is a lifelong fucking process that never ends.
Never.
But in order to do that, you really need to be willing to face yourself. And the problem is that sometimes we get into recovery and then we get in this comfortable state. And when we get in a comfortable state, then we're living in a perception of, I'm Justin with 22 fucking years clean, who has this, and this. Those are all perceptions. I had a spiritual teacher challenge me the other day. Can you sum up in one sentence who you are and why you're here?
Fuck.
One sentence. Who you are and why you're here.
Nope.
Tough question. But I'm telling you, if you continue on the spiritual path, you'll be able to answer that without a doubt. Because you're going to get in touch with who you are, and you're going to get in touch with exactly what your purpose is. And really, what we're here for, in my opinion, with the work that I'm doing, is we're here to shine our fucking light, to live through humility. Humility doesn't mean being quiet. Humility means openly being who you are. So if you're a loud, rambunctious person, then being loud and rambunctious is actually you carrying yourself with humility, believe it or not. Humility's taught wrong all the time. So humility, and every single person is different. We all have strengths of like what we're here to do. I truly believe this. I truly believe we came here to do things. You know what I mean? Like, you're obviously a talented dancer. You know, I don't know what I am.
Got him.
I'm good at recovery. That's
When you said that sum yourself up in one sentence, instantly in my mind, all I thought is that I'm a vessel and I'm here to help people.
Yeah.
I've always believed that since from day one.
So if you can answer that question, then you start to answer all areas of your life serving that.
Yeah.
When we get very focused on, these are the things that I've been taught that are supposed to make me happy, and we get off track in serving our path and purpose because we're just starting to, if I get a fancy car, then I'm going to be good. And it's like, is a fancy car serving? I'm a vessel who's here to help people.
I feel like a lot of people.
And don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to criticize having a car. I'm just saying because the car piece is taught to us.
Yeah.
We are taught in America. Get a white picket fence, a house,
401k.
2 dogs, a 401k, a wife,
go to college,
some nice cars,
Yeah.
and guess what happens? And guess what happens when you get all that? Then what happens? You end up in a midlife crisis. And what is a midlife crisis? None of that shit fucking worked. Got to go deeper. What are you here for? What makes you happy, dude? I'm seeing tons of people at this point who are in detox, who are very successful people who had very good lives, and they focused on the outside stuff. And they got to the point where their kids graduated and went to college and stuff, and now they didn't know what their purpose was. And all of a sudden, they started drinking too much at night. And all of a sudden, they're these... Dude, I met a Harvard professor in detox. And I'm like, no shit, huh? But it's the same thing. At the end of the day, recovery points you towards what all mankind is here for. All mankind is here to learn about ourselves, but we're not taught that. We're taught the opposite of that. We're taught
Get stuff.
Everything outside yourself, all outside yourself. I have it tattooed on me. Go within or go without. It's like that's where you find the answers. You find the answers within.
I have my name tattooed on me.
Do you? Cool.
Yeah.
Sissy.
I just figured that.
I have your name tattooed on me.
Yeah, I got it when I was 16, just
We
in
see
case.
it?
It's too sweet to be shown. It's right here on my shoulder. And just in case.
So you don't forget.
And then underneath it, I got 2 Chinese symbols.
What does it mean?
The Chinese symbols, they mean dragon.
No, they don't.
That's what they told you.
No, that I actually got them verified by someone that could read it. Yep. So just in case anybody was wondering, when I was 16, it said Chris Dragon,
Stupid ass.
Nice.
This is karate name.
which is my karate name. But we are gonna take a quick break because Chris got a weak bladder.
Yep. Thank you.
You don't tell me what to do. All right, we're back from the tinkle break. Like always, Chris, weak bladder Ledoux.
Dude, so bad, man.
All right, so we're talking about a bunch of good shit. Nikki Mac, it's good to have you in the building. Awkward Andy to my right. If you don't know, now you know. All construction repping. But so we're talking about the resistance component, resistance in early recovery, resistance in recovery in general. When it comes with time resistance, that resistance comes in the form of the necessary action that we must take in order for us to progress, right? It's about an evolution of self. It's not just about the process of getting clean and staying clean. It's also about a process of understanding yourself and going on a journey of path and purpose and the development of a life worth living, which is so part of the foundation of what helps to counteract the resistance that will occur either in early recovery or during your process and your journey of recovery is your lack of identification of a target or a direction. It's the question that you need to ask yourself when you begin any process of change. What the fuck do I want from this, right? What am I trying to attain? Like, if we're just hopelessly and aimlessly wandering around the world with no direction, it's easy to get lost. It's very easy to get lost within that. And so we have to understand, and part of why we go deep, right? Why we try to get a deep and further understanding of ourselves is when we go on that journey and we develop path and purpose, and we're unraveling the narratives and the limited belief systems that tell us that we can't, that we'll never, and then all of a sudden you start to begin that change, right? The change mentally, and there's hope for a future or a life, right? Mm-hmm. Something that it maybe it's not tangible quite yet, but there's that glimmer of hope, mm-hmm. And it begins a process of an identification of like what am I striving for, right? And then having people around you, the connection component to nurture that, right? And it's like with Jay, like he's always kind of had an idea internally, and myself, like especially early on in recovery. There's these things that I had passions for, right? And so we had the benefit of having an internal path and purpose of an understanding of like something that made us feel alive. But part of getting clean is to get back to the sunlight of the spirit, to allow ourselves to like allow that spirit to grow and shine again, right? It's the child innocence that we had from a young age when we used to believe that we could be an astronaut, or we believed that we could be an NBA player. Like, obviously I know that I can't be an NBA player anymore, but there's other things. The world is so available right now for so many opportunities for whatever it is that I want, internal and external. And so like, it's the identification, like, okay, because let's put it this way. when we don't have a target set in place, right? We're not striving for something, or we're not in a development of defining what our path and purpose is, and the resistance comes, it's real easy to say fuck it to a limited belief system of if this is our idea of what life could become, right? So if I'm in a state where I don't understand what I suffer from, I don't understand how it operates within me, and I'm allowing resistance to dictate my actions through fear, so I'm settling in a place of mediocrity for the life that I've created, right? I'm settling for a place of mediocrity in internal and external. So I'm limiting myself to my interactions with people. I'm limiting to myself to like what is my level of acceptance for the type of life that I'm going to live. And so you see a lot of people fall into place where they're in relationships that they're unhappy with, and they're working jobs that they're unhappy with. And I'm not taking shots at you. I'm like, because this was me, and this is a lot of people, right? They fall to this false identity of who they're supposed to be, and not truly identifying what it is that they want. Not what your head tells you that you want, right? It's what is my spirit, that thing that guided me when I was young, that gave me hope for a future, that innocence before the world came and ripped it out from underneath me, you know, for life happened, right? It's like getting back in touch with that now with the new understanding of like what is required from me. Because when I don't have this understanding of what how I suffer and that this shit goes on within me internally, I fall prey to that. And then, like I was saying, when that resistance occurs, it's very easy for me to say fuck it all to a mediocre life, right? Especially addicts in early recovery. If they don't go down that journey of self-discovery at some point, years 1 through 3 or whatever, and they find themselves settling for less and falling prey to the mediocrity of what they've limited themselves to attain, because it is their reality, because their belief system hasn't been changed. So whether you think you can or you can't, either way you're right, and your life becomes a reflection of your belief systems. So now you're living to a reality self-inflicted and self-created that does not make you happy or fulfill you. So of course it becomes easy to say fuck it to that, and to get high or to ruin your life, because you don't really have an emotional connection to anything that you've acquired or attained. And but when you've identified something, when you've identified this path and purpose, like it's very, like your disease right now, Jay, it'd be real hard to say, yo, fuck this. You know what I mean? You're like, with everything you got going on with graffiti, you're taking meetings with clothing lines, you got the artwork, you just did that wall last weekend, the weekend before, your stuff's getting posted all over the place, you're working in treatment, you're with all your closest friends, you're doing your dream job, and there's no limitations to what the type of life is that you can attain. It's real hard for your disease to say, fuck this, right? But if you had fallen prey to the resistance and you had settled, you would still be living in places that you didn't want. And I'm not even saying this is Florida or wherever, but you've fallen prey to resistance. Like a lot of us fall prey to that resistance component, and it's a lack of identification of what am I trying to do. Because when I tell myself that I don't want to do this stuff, but I also tell myself, well, I do want this for my life, and I do want this to be my experience, and I do want to heal, and I do want to continue to like you're going to all these spiritual teachers and you're doing so much work on yourself. You've identified what you're trying to do. You're trying to create internal change. You're trying to heal the little boy inside of you that creates these emotions that you felt negatively for a long time. So you spend the money, you take the trips, you do what you got to do. You put in all this extra work for something, right? Because you've identified what you're trying to get out of this. Had you not identified what you were trying to get out of this, it would be a lot easier to just stay home with your beautiful wife and your beautiful kids and your beautiful house with your beautiful car and watch, because we can kill a series on Netflix like no other.
For sure.
We're really good at that. It's me and you especially.
Oh, yeah, I'm really good at it.
Well, all you got to do is say, have you seen this show? You brought up the last show that I watched was a show that you told me that it was called The Messiah. Oh. You told me it was amazing. I was like, say good. No more, fam. Won't be in work 3 days. You know what I mean?
It's a good show. That one has spiritual meaning, so that one's actually worth
it.
Watching.
Was a really good show.
You know what I mean?
But the premise of this is like the importance of the identification of the direction that we're going, right? So when I don't want to get up, when I don't want to be vulnerable, when I don't want to tell the truth, when I don't want to, I'm not saying no to my current circumstances. I'm saying no to where it is that I want to be, what I'm trying to attain. the type of man that I want to be, the type of father that I want to become, the type of husband that I want to be, the type of brother that I want to be, the type of man I want to be remembered by. Like, so I no longer have nothing to barter with, right? For before, it was easy to say no because I had no direction. I had no identification of anything. So it was just like, whatever. But now I'm working towards something, right? I'm working towards, and I love being a part of a process of evolution itself, man. We learn, and there's never a lack of surprises of what the profound effect of like putting in the work, going deeper. Like, people, it sounds fucking stupid maybe to a lot of people watching this, and maybe they're not on that level yet, but you'll come to understand that the freedom that you're essentially looking for is something internal, right? And no matter what you do externally, and when you hear us talk about the nice things, the bends and all that shit like that, there's nothing bad with that. The bad thing with that is when we decide that that's going to be what's going to fulfill us or heal us or fix us or change the dialogue to which we speak to ourselves. The only thing that changes is the type of car that you're driving. So you're just a negative thinking, fucking insecure person in a beautiful car or a beautiful house or with a beautiful woman. Like, you just, nothing internally changes. Now you the same head that told you needed this is the same head that's telling you that you're a fucking idiot for spending all this money on it. You know, it's like we can't change the dialogue to which we talk to ourselves just by making external decisions.
I'm so insecure that I get worried about what people think about me driving a nice car. They think I'm a douchebag. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even want to. That's how insecure I am. I can't even confidently fucking drive a nice car. It's like, it's ridiculous. But I did the money spending for a long time because I was trying to prove myself. Yeah. Because I thought I needed to prove myself because I felt like nothing.
And that's what we're taught.
And literally,
right?
For 20 fucking years, I did that. For 20 years. And now I'm backtracking out of it. And I'm not criticizing anybody for taking this because this is what we're taught. These are beliefs that have been taught to us. And so we incorporate them and then we bring them into recovery. And recovery's trying to teach us differently, but it's just so easy to kind of veer to what you're used to. No. They tell me to do this. No. If I get this, if I get that, if I get this. And every time we get something, it lasts for, a week, 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then it's on to the next thing. But eventually you're forced. Like, you got to go inside. It doesn't matter. There's nothing external that will truly fulfill you. But when you start to go inside, then all of a sudden you start to manifest external stuff that the universe wants you to create. And then all of a sudden you become a creator of your external environment, and life becomes really exciting when that happens. Just like what's happening with you.
It's funny that you said that because this past year, I've known that I wanted to come back up here. When it started with coming up, painting the barbershop, me and my family came up on vacation, and that vacation turned into 4 different commission jobs for artwork. So every time I would touch down in Boston or was letting people know that I was coming back, all of a sudden these jobs would appear. Hey, make sure you hit me up when you're here. And that's what anyone that knows me on this, knows my artwork and just, it's just who I am. I really, at 14 years old, I said to myself, and I remember it like it was yesterday, because there's something that chasing my artwork and being involved in graffiti. And I said, I'm going to be a successful, known graffiti writer, and take that for whatever you want. I mean, I've been in magazines, I've done all their stuff, and these people I idolized became my friends over the years, and I share that because that's my truth. I was so passionate about my graffiti and just doing it for the love of it that the people that I literally idolized became my friends. And then years later, when I got clean, that's when I took it to a whole different level and widened what I could do. Like, my brain, I used to be so like, oh, I'm just a graffiti writer that does this, and I wanted to take it further and get better, right? And I put the effort in, and talking about the resistance, there's so much stuff that's gone through my head. In this episode, I kind of noticed that I'm more listening because I'm taking a lot in, because I'm hearing these things that literally are making me reflect on my own life. And having all that time, I was going through some serious pain and caused a lot of damage in my life, but I wouldn't go to a fucking meeting and share about it because all the guys I sponsor and all these people look up to me. That's J-Mac. He got the clothing line. And that's cool. Yeah, I have all that stuff, but that's not like what made me. There was like a deeper rooted thing. I'm a fucking addict that needed to fucking share my pain to get another day clean. And I thought it was a good idea to go back. So you bet your motherfucking ass, when I finally came back, like for this time where I sit right here, I know that that's my calling. I get to do two things that I absolutely fucking love. My artwork and work with other addicts that are just like me and be like, hey, this is me. This is where I fucked up. And literally have no filter. Because we've been like that for a long time. I mean, we've lived together, so we've shared some fucked up shit with each other. And it's funny because you share it with your friend and it's like, yeah, I've been through that too. And obviously there's some comfort in sharing some fucked up shit where someone else has been through. That's ultimately what the program's about, you know? But along those lines of us formulating like, hey, you're wanted up here. That's a great feeling. I was looking for acceptance my whole life. I know everyone else on this panel pretty much. My father wasn't there for me, you know? And recovery is where I found that. Literally where I found it, you know? And I have so many friends through recovery that they're not into graffiti. They're not even into hip hop. They might like rock music and fucking, you know, they like fishing or hunting. That isn't what's important. You know, what's important is having that connection and love with another addict, you know, and then all this stuff started formulating on the last trip, and this is where I was like, this is meant to be. You booked a trip and we're like, oh, I'm going to fly you up. I'm going to paint the podcast room. I got this podcast going on. Would love you to be a part of it eventually if you come back another time. And I was like, oh, what's the day? I'm like, dude, that's my 40th birthday that weekend. You know what I mean? And obviously we were a little sad I wasn't going to be with my girl and my son, but she was like, be with your friends. You know, she was like happy. Like to come back here, you know, paint this room and to see everything that we basically have worked on as people, right? We've been a part of each other's story and then what's funny is that we don't have to have known each other that long. You still feel the same bond, right? And I went back down there and was just like, I haven't thought this clear ever in my life. I said that. And I was, you know, it was funny because I was like, oh, 2020, you know, like 2020 vision. I'm like, turn 40. It's 2020. And I've used in this past year or a little bit more, I've literally used as fuel the most fucked up shit that I've been through in my life. The trauma as a kid, my grandmother dying, my mother having me so young and just being like, you know, hanging the street. That's the babysitter, right? Yeah. So I did have fucked up belief systems. I didn't think I was good enough. All this fucking false narrative. I used that as my fuel. I did so much soul searching this past year and doing artwork and writing ideas down. I write ideas down for groups. I'm always thinking of how to do something that's fun. And now that's what I get paid to do. You know what I mean? So it's like I've already had one part of my path. It's already been paved. And anyone that knows me, it'd be like, give me one word if you think of J-Mac. But most people are going to say graffiti. Yeah. That's just the truth. And I know that. But the other part, and I love that we have this platform now because so many people, you know, and I don't think I shared it on here. Maybe I did. But, you know, when you got people reaching out to you that are also graffiti artists from on the other side of the world and genuinely just saying thank you for sharing that content. That was before I even knew I was coming up. It's when you guys were doing it. And I was like, these are my friends, you know, and they get some shit to say that you're going to get something out of it. If you're admitting to me online that you're an addict, I'm going to send you this fucking link and you're going to get something out of it. You know, and then to be a part of that. And it's a very freeing feeling. And it's weird because in the past couple months, I almost started catching myself thinking in ways I didn't think before about immortality and like, we don't live forever. And I'm about to make this motherfucker count every day I can.
Hell yeah.
Literally, that's what I do. You know, that's why I've been like, Michelle, I want a schedule. I want to know what I'm going to do. These guys are asking me about groups. I get like fucking teared up, like to be able to just be truthful and have guys go, I want to hear that again. Can you do that like at 11 Thursday or, right? That's a fucking great compliment in itself. When I was started with being the hard-edged kid that come in and fucking all this false ego and pride. That's what got me high with almost 9 years clean. Yeah. It's ego and pride. You know what I always say? Ego and pride, you know what it gets you? More fucking ego and pride. That's literally about it. You'll just become a bigger asshole with that. In my experience, I just became a bigger asshole. When I chased positive stuff, is there a little ego and pride? Yeah, that's kind of part of being a man, but that's not the fucking highest character of me. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's more dialed back down, you know? And I try to work on that too because I don't like that, to be honest. And recovery gives me that gift to realize, hey, you're being an asshole. Why don't you dial it back down a little? Yeah. You know?
And I mean, you really hit the nail on the head there. Like you talk about pain. pain is huge for me. Like when things are going good in life, it's so easy to get complacent and forget where you came from and how you got there. You know, and I just went through a bunch of that. Like pain, you know, comes from inside, and we're talking about the spirit. That's my spirit breaking. It's yelling out to me, letting me know like this isn't right. You know what I mean? What you got going on in your life is not right, and you need to do something about it. And that's where my motivation comes from. And you talked about the help. Like I don't know about you guys, but like I need help. Yeah. Like left to my own devices, I'm fucked.
Yep.
Like I need help. And that's where, you know, the good people that you meet in your life and that you should try to gravitate towards, you know, come into your life, you know, and you talk about the resistance, you know, going back to talking about getting real estate license, you know, we talked about it a year ago and I haven't done shit about it, you know, because that's my fear. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm going to leave my comfort zone to do something else that my brain tells me I don't know if I'll be good at it, even though, you know, I have people that you're talking about that love me, you know, unconditionally and are going to tell me if I'm going to be good at it or not, you know, walk into my house and say, what the fuck are you waiting for? Yeah. You know, and to do that or to have, you know, friends call you and be like, dude, how are you doing down there? Like, if you want to come back up here, like I got you. Like I'll help you, you know, I'll help you with employment. You know what I mean? You need a place to stay for a little bit till you get on your feet up here. Like I got you. Those are the kind of people that I need in my life. If I were to tell you that I did anything good in my life by myself, I'd be bullshitting you. And I would be taking all the credit for things that many people have helped me do. And I couldn't do it without them. And I can't, you know, it's people that, like you say, you know what I mean? If I tell you my truth, are you still going to love me? I need people that I can tell my truth to be like, Nick, that is fucked up.
Yep.
And that's not how it should be. And we need to go down a different path and help guide me that way. Because if I let myself think and let myself guide me along the path, I'm going to keep going like this. I need you guys to kick me in the head and push me back.
Because most of the time, our truth is a negative perception that we have of ourselves, right? A negative. So we've decided that it's something that is absolute through our own inner perception of, based off of fear. Ultimately, we made a decision that it's the premise of the limited belief systems, the self-inflicted barriers that we create in the life that become a direct reflection of the reality of the life that we're living. Like, oh, I can only have X amount, I can only have this amount of money, but all that shit is bullshit when you understand how the universe works and how the subconscious mind works. And I bring it up all the time. Napoleon Hill, the subconscious mind doesn't give a fuck. Essentially, whether something's fact or fiction, true or false, it takes the information that we feed it and it brings it into the external world. That's what it does. So if my dialogue that I'm constantly having is dialogue from self, just with self, and I'm not seeking out new information and new, because I have the type of mind, I have to be in a place of repetition. I have to have engaged conversations. I need to be challenged. I need to have some uncomfortable moments. I need, like Justin yesterday, I was being a dick to him. And he said, I was just tight in my response to him. And he goes, why are you being a dick to me? I was like,
Justin checked you?
He did, yeah. Well, he spoke his truth. And I was defensive at first.
You're actually hard to speak up to. I sometimes have bowed to your energy, but recently I've had a spiritual teacher that's like, you got to be strong in, like, it's interesting. I lost my power for a while because, like, I was speaking, you got to be careful. Like, who you surround yourself with is very important.
Absolutely.
You need to surround yourself with people who believe. Dude, all I need is I just need people to believe in me.
Yeah.
Just believe in me. That's all I need. But the second that you expose yourself and you tell your truth and people fucking shit on you, dude, it's like such.
And that's when the walls go up.
Dude, walls go up and instantly you start to dumb down, dude. You know what I mean? And like
It's funny you said that about him because I've joked with him before. There's times where he gets so in his head and I'm like, dude, do I owe you money I don't know about?
Yeah,
and he starts laughing. I've been friends with him for so long, I don't take it personal. Like, people bust ball. Chris, you haven't texted me in 3 days. I'm like, he doesn't text his own fucking mother back, and worried about. Because she said that to you once, busting balls.
Oh, yeah.
We're the same person, though.
Well, because when I call it, I go manic. I get into an obsessive mindset where it's the addict mentality, but I've learned how to push that into a place of, like, productivity. And it isn't the most healthy mind state that that I can be in. But sometimes we come to a place where Aquarians, we usually take our energy and we spread it over the course of 100 things, because that's what's more comfortable for us, because we get to bow out of different things when it creates the negative, because it'll create a negative emotion internally. It'll become stress. So we get to jump around, right? So that nothing really causes us a lot of inner turmoil. But when we harness all our energy in one direction, and we're trying to focus on it's like my body feels like this, like, because I'm trying to hold it all
like that. That's
yeah.
what you look like.
Yeah.
And so what happens to me, I'm very productive in that mindset.
You are.
But I'm highly unapproachable.
Yeah.
Because it causes like mental tension for me. But what you did the other day was by speaking your honesty, is you broke down that wall and you allowed me to like, and I got to explain like, this is why. And I told Nicole and Michelle, they're also our coworkers, like, I'm in that state of mind right now. Don't personalize me, please, and just call me out. Like, just instead of like attacking me or personalizing me, and like, which will make me defensive, just call me out. Be like, hey, tone it down. We're with you. Because that's all. I just get like highly energetic, and then if someone comes in, like, I feel like someone's gonna cause me to stop, it makes me angry, or but that immediately disarmed me. It was just his truth, and I was like, I was being a dick. I'm sorry. And we got to move past it, but that's what the people that you need around you, because and I want that from him. I want that from all my friends. You're never afraid to tell me the truth, Jay. Which is, you have balls to, like, you've never been hesitant, regardless of my mindset, where I'm in, to call me out. And that's why I love you so much. And Justin, you do always end up calling me out, but that was the quickest. That was in real time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which was good.
Normally
That's
it takes
good.
like a while, and then you know what I mean? And then we're doing this fucking pat game back and forth.
Yeah.
We're like, are we okay? Are we not fucking okay?
I don't want to
Dude,
be.
you know what we're talking about here, dude. So it's like, but at the end of the day, it's like when we can just fucking face our fear and be honest.
Yeah, that's all
it dies. It fucking
Instantly.
loses
right
its
there,
power.
right
Gone.
there, right there.
Gone.
I don't want to walk on eggshells around the people that I love and trust. You know what I mean? And like the relationships I had before I got clean, it was all self-seeking, right? In Misery Loves Company, that's what I surrounded myself with. But the guys like now, like, they want to see me succeed. They push me to succeed. They're there to guide me. And they're also there to tell me when I'm being a fucking idiot at the same time. Because it's easy for me to isolate, get in my own head, make bad decisions. And I need someone to put me in check. Because like Nick and everyone was saying, when I'm left to my own devices, I make terrible decisions. Especially if I'm not working a program. If I'm not being honest with myself.
But
And we also have to be teachable. You have to be in a mindset
always remain
where you're
teachable.
listening with the intent to hear, and not with the intent to respond, which is times I've struggled with that.
Yeah.
And a lot of us struggle with that, because no one likes to have the mirror held up to their face, especially prematurely.
Yeah.
And sometimes it happens prematurely, meaning prematurely to where you're ready to see yourself. Because a lot of the time, especially when we're in a place where we're suppressing our truth, and then someone shows us, the defense instantly comes out. Boom.
Yeah.
Because we haven't even admitted to it to ourselves, and now someone else is trying to
100%.
get us to admit it in real time. So the defense mechanism. So it's like, where are you at in your process of like dialogue? Because it's early. It's easier to be exposed to confrontation when you're in a good place of transparency, right? And so that's also part of the importance of staying in a place of transparency within your truth. But we're coming to the end of the podcast, so we always get to a question where we ask, and Chris fucks it up, and then we move it to his right, and it gets better. So we're on the topic of resistance. Do you have a question that you wanna?
No.
Nothing's coming off the top of the dome. Fuck it. I'm always freestyling anyway. So.
I got one.
Yeah.
What's something currently that you guys are going through that you want to accomplish that you think is, I don't know, not unattainable, but like the hardest thing you see on the agenda that you want to accomplish?
Oh, that's tough.
Chris? Ledoux.
Dude, that's tough. I don't know, man. I have so many things I want to accomplish. I mean, the house thing, that's something that's going on currently. You know, I got approved for a mortgage loan, and then it's tough for me to take that next step, right? because then I played in my head the negative self-talk, like, you only have 2 years clean. Like, and then I jump back to like insecurities of like, you know what, you're possibly going to fuck it up. And then I have Chris and Justin joking around. They're going to fire me. And I'm like, oh, what if I lose my job? And then I have a mortgage and all these things, right? And chaos ensues in the eternal warfare. I know you do. But that's something I've overcome recently. But the toughest thing for me was taking the first step. In order for me to take that first step, though, what did I do? I asked guys who have gone there and done that and been like, all right, what's the first step? How do I do that? You know? And that's tough for me to do about anything. It's tough for me to admit that I need help.
Humility.
Yeah. It's fucking... I think it's always... I think you guys all struggle with it too, but it's always going to be there. But
Yeah.
I learned now to just like, all right, bite the bullet, just ask. Because if I don't ask, then I'm never going to learn. I'm never going to learn how to do it. But that was something recently I was resistant with. So
I'll go, so I could give you... We'll go this way, though, because we always go... So for me, the hardest thing that I can attain, but for me to attain, and it's probably similar to Justin too, is I want to be committed to, I want to be in a state, physically, mentally, and spiritually, with where I'm firing on all cylinders, and most importantly, being organized in my cluttered mind, right? Because my biggest downfall is that I have too many ideas that come out, and I spread myself and put energy across the board in a bunch of different places, and I think that that's good and I'm being productive, but in essence I'm actually just giving limited attention to a lot of really good ideas that most of the time I'll just let them fall to the wayside, or they just die out because they haven't been nourished or anything. Where I want to have focused energy and discipline and be organized with specific goals and agendas, physically, mentally, and spiritually, and to develop a self-implemented structure for myself. And like we talk about it constantly, repetition is the mother of all skill. It's going to take practice, because I am true to my sign, Aquarius. I'm a free spirit. I don't like being locked down to any one thing for long lengths of time. But I truly believe that a lot of my issues in my life, like my chaos and stress, is self-inflicted due to my lack of organization and discipline. I can come out of the gate, I'm like a match. I light up real quick, and then I fizzle right back out. And that's something that I have to be better with. And that's financially, that's being a business owner, being a consistent leader, being a consistent, like in all areas of my life. And it's like finding the balance within that and the self-implemented structure. I don't know how, and you asked what's hard. It is hard. I don't know how. I just know what it is that I want to attain. And I try to be better and do the best that I can but that is definitely a goal of mine.
that's good.
At the current moment, I would say it's interesting because I got pretty comfortable. We do this podcast, do radio show, do all this stuff. I'm putting myself out there, but then I got a few things that I'm working on that, like the book per se, specifically. The book's actually done.
So release it.
Thank God.
Well, exactly. So I'm
interested in that.
I just haven't had the energy to put myself out there honestly with it. You know what I mean? We had all this stuff going on in the world, and I didn't want to be perceived as like self-centered during that, or self-seeking. You know what I mean? I wanted to have like some compassion for all things going on. And now I'm just kind of like in this holding phase where it's like, all right, I gotta put it out there. You know what I mean? Dude, it's a lifelong dream. I always had a vision of like writing a book, and I never thought it was possible. And the only way it was possible was God connecting me with Autumn. It would have never happened without that. I could not do it by myself. But it's funny how the universe will help you manifest things that you might not be capable of yourself, but it will deliver the tools, the people, whatever you need. If you decide that you want to do something, literally, I just wrote it in my, 100 goals list. I'm a big believer in like writing down what you want to do. All things, like no limitations, And so that one's a real big one for me. And I've just been stuck in a little bit of fear of like, I have a goal of it being a best-selling book.
Oh yeah.
That was my goal. You know what I mean? So
you can't write a book and the goal be, I hope this book's
80
whatever.
millionth on the
I hope it shows
50 copies.
I just wanted to sell one.
So currently, I would say that's something that I'm.
And in spite of the world, and I know what you're talking about with that, but where you got to
Well,
go
it's
is
insecurity.
underneath that, there's still addicts and there's still parents of addicts and there's still people suffering that book could potentially help.
Yeah.
So
get
essentially, you're being selfish and not making it available to someone that book can potentially change their life. The ripple effect.
Yeah,
Right.
I
So
got you.
You're so
Basically,
selfish.
Release it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to. It's our. It's,
I want to read it.
Yeah. So
We promoted it a couple
Yeah,
episodes ago.
yeah, we're gonna next episode we'll have it here. We'll have it here in physical form. How about that?
Hell yeah.
Cool.
And I'm
So
going to charge him for promotion. Nico, write that down. He owes us for 2 Ascend.
I sent
Yep.
another one.
Yep, he owes us
That's
for 2 because you put it up twice. So multiply that by 2 and document how many times we talk about the book.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Jay.
I think Jay started.
Well,
No,
it's
I
his
asked the question,
question.
so I was gonna.
He
Yeah,
goes
go
last.
ahead.
It's,
Answer
it's how the game goes.
Oh,
Yeah.
you go last.
If you
Okay.
watch the podcast, you'd know. You know
Just
what I
watch
mean?
like 4 minutes of one episode.
Yeah. But it's
Lance.
cool.
It's cool,
It's
though.
fine. You know what I mean?
He's the one doing the thumbs down.
He's the one. He's the dislike. It is you. It would be you.
Hey, I was just trying to give you a little bit of hate, fuel for the fire.
I
you
get
know
it,
what
dude.
mean?
I get it.
Respect.
Yeah,
I lose sleep over that thumbs down.
Yeah, of course you do.
Yeah.
And then I call you in the middle of the night, wake you up, and
Yeah.
hang up, and make you lose more sleep.
Flashbacks.
No, resistant. I think.
No, not resistant.
What?
No, that's not the question.
What?
He forgot the question.
No, the question is what's something that you?
Yeah, have been resisting in your life. No.
No.
Oh.
He's like Chris. He's not.
It's like, Ron, you
It's that
listening?
chair.
I'll take
Ron
a double
Burgundy.
cheeseburger.
Hey, Ron,
and
are you
large
listening?
fry.
Nope.
Could you
Go-
supersize that?
Go ahead. I got lost in your eyes.
Ooh, good. That's a good cover up. I like that.
What is on your agenda? Like something that you want to accomplish that you.
Oh well, you know what? You know why I think I brought resistance into that is because something that has been on my agenda has actually been getting back to like working on my spirit. Because I definitely in this past year have been, a little lost with that, and I think that's why I tied it into resistance. Because I think what everyone spoke about had a little bit of resistance in what they were trying to accomplish and or do. But it's definitely getting back to, working on my resistance. I've kind of, in the past year got like pretty stagnant in my recovery in general and working on that aspect of my life. And it's really starting to show because, I've been, putting myself through a lot of pain this past year, and it's really starting to come out. And, it kind of opened up for me when you guys just came to the house, you know what I mean, a few weeks ago, and we had that conversation, and it all started with, like, how we doing, you know what I mean, like what's going on, and then us just being men and speaking honestly, about everything that has been going on. That's kind of opened my eyes, back to that and the realization, and that's why I talk about like I need the help. Because I can't do it myself. Because I've been doing it, this whole past year by myself, and it's been leading me down the wrong roads. That has been bringing me this pain. So I just needed that help, to get back to that point, where I can keep asking for more help, and keeping more honest and truthful in what I have going on and what I'm doing, so I can get some of that guidance and get back to that spiritual nurturing, and I can find that love again. I mean, I talked about it with you, I always say I wish I could be more like you and just love the shit out of everybody, and help whoever, no matter who they are, and I find myself, disliking people for all the wrong reasons when I don't even know them, and I don't even give people a chance. And I wish I had, more love to offer more people and to let that love grow. So that's kind of what I'm going to be working towards at this point.
Well, it happens in
My mic's cutting out.
it happens in time.
I appreciate your honesty.
Okay.
I love you.
Yeah,
Seriously.
appreciate that.
Well, it's-
Thank you.
Oh.
You said working
Just so
on
you
your
guys
spirit?
know, Nick and Justin before the podcast were just shitting on each
It was
other.
Yeah,
amazing.
but
I'm
Like-
actually thinking I gotta apologize to him now.
Yeah, like they were like fucking
Yeah,
boom,
we
boom,
were-
bah,
yeah.
boom, bah,
That shit was
boom,
actually.
bah.
I was like doing awkward laughs.
Yeah.
Someone's getting punched. in the face.
Dude, Justin didn't want to apologize until like I want to work on my spirit. I'm like, I saw him. He's like sat up in his chair. He's like, yep.
But are you actually friends if you can't be honest to each other about how you feel, like you guys were just talking about?
Yeah, no, for
You know
sure.
what I mean?
But
Absolutely.
real quick, because with him being on here, when I worked here last time, just real quick Nick Mack story. there was a time we were going to be holding a house meeting. I don't know if it was weather or whatever, but I remember I was like, well, let's get a speaker and someone that's, either at Rise or was a client. And someone brought up, they said, oh, I'll get Nick Mack. He's at, and they named the house. And I hadn't met you at that point, but I trusted. They said, he speaks honestly. He has a lot of like the way they explained him, I was like, call him right now. And that was when I first met you. And me and him ran a meeting. He spoke and I spoke, and then we opened up to the client. And I can honestly say that after he spoke, because you were like getting emotional, and I get like that too. And we've touched on it earlier. When you tap into that, it doesn't really fucking matter if anyone's judging you or has anything negative to say. You separate it, like Chris always says. And from that moment on, like, it's not like we hung out after that, but there was a certain bond there. And I hadn't seen him. And then that night when I come back, or the very next night, we went to Michelle's and we had that. And I felt that. Like, I didn't really know exactly what's been going on recently, but I could tell by that conversation that sometimes you just need two people that care, right? To be truly tapped in, like, yo, listen, these meetings aren't doing that well with us three. We'll get some guys together, right? Go to that meeting. Let's make it a place. It's not ego. It's just, because I've seen that happen before where guys are motivated you just need that spark of truth. And next thing you know, you'll have a fucking room full of 40 people that are just speaking their truth. Yeah. To me, that's a good speaker. Do you know what I mean? Like, people think it's like you got to be like hollering and like really. No, when people just speak their truth.
It's contagious.
And then now since I've been back, we talk all the time. We've rode the scooters. We joke. And that's just sometimes someone's process is drift away. Don't pick up, but drift away. You're fucking hating everyone. This one's a fucking clown. Blah, all this negativity, right? And then all of a sudden, how great is that we live these lives, we can dial it back in. Even if that dude, rightfully so, could be called names, you're like, I don't like that I feel like that. I didn't give them a chance. Right? You own your side of the street. And I'm real big on this stuff lately, like I said, where I'm almost using like the deepest, darkest, like, father not being around, grandma, any negative thing I have is literally I'm using as fuel to be better right now. Like, I really am. And the thing that's on my plate or my agenda, like that I want to accomplish, and it's right there, but it's still now, is that for a long time, I've wanted to be able to build a career off just my art and doing what I enjoy. And it's almost like the recovery piece came in to be like, okay, now both of these are both things you like. So you get what you put into it, right? I'm always saying that, and I apply that to my life. For that to truly flourish, I see great things. We've shared it before. When I started really getting into coaching my son, I love helping kids. Because at that age, I was fucking scared of everything, dude. Everything. So I instill confidence in kids that I coach. I've coached basketball. I've coached flag football. I've coached baseball. It's not always about the sport. So I take we just talked about it. We've all talked about fears, insecurities, doubts, false sense of ego and pride, different values, fucking chasing outside shit. I literally teach that in kids, no matter what sport. So something with recovery, my artwork, bringing the street smart stuff back, I love that. That's been like my baby for so long. And Chris seen when I went hard with it before, but it's almost like I have more of a purpose behind that name now. I have these dreams of doing, my murals and things that I've done have gotten bigger as I've gotten older. I have dreams of doing like fucking 2-3 story murals with positive affirmation and quotes and taking it to another level. And it's, guess what? Because I can think of it and I know what I'm capable of, it's just now a matter of chasing it. Before you know it, someone's going to see a 3-story mural that says, be the change you want to see. Or be grateful. That's my thing. Be grateful with my B, right? That's like my logo,
If you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand.
And I've already done that, and I've already fucking checked off so many things.
Check off the mic.
That's the second time he's done this.
No.
Oh, you had it. You have it.
Hello.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Mic dropped at the wrong time.
Yeah,
Should have been at the end and just.
We'll edit that out.
Fucking out of here.
We'll edit that. We'll put it together. We'll make it look clean.
Oh, I want that in there.
Got you, dude. I wouldn't play you off.
There's literally things that I've accomplished that was so scary at one point, where when people were like, dude, you could do that, and I seen it, like I kind of wanted it, but was like, that's gonna take some work. Kind of lazy, right? And now I've done that, and like you're saying, I think of certain things, and you can make it happen, right? I've already taken it. You know, we just did the wall for Tomb. You were just sharing. You know, I have all these great things going on. All these companies now from Europe and Boston, and I've been doing that for a while, but now it's on a different level. Do you know what I mean? And that last wall we did, it was for a friend that passed away. So what I'm getting in to what I'm saying as far as something that's on the agenda is that by taking my artwork to another level, I've been a graffiti writer for a long time, over 25 years. And it's always been about my name. It's like almost like pride and ego. That name has just been fucking ingrained over the years. Trains, all that, different states. I've been in magazine, all that. I get something more out of doing these pieces now that are just different. Wisdom, right? Doing stuff for the podcast, doing positive affirmation, meanings that wholeheartedly mean something to me because I went through it, right? I want to do that shit on a grand scale and ultimately have even kids, young kids, art students help me do the wall.
Well, the world's ripe for it, my friend. I think you're right on time with that.
Yeah.
Word. All right, so coming to the end of the podcast, I'd like to thank our friend Nikki Mack in the building.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Nikki.
Yeah,
Nick.
yeah, you obviously
apologize.
don't see the coincidence of the topic of the podcast. You know what I mean? It's just like what I do with anything. I sniper share people, so I sniper podcasted you without your permission. So
It's all good. I was happy to be here.
I love you.
I love you,
Love you
dude.
back.
Shout out to our sponsors, Rich Print Shop. Shout out to our sponsors, All Construction and Rise Barber Shop. Special shout out to one of the barbers over there, Dave.
Wu-Tang forever.
Yeah. Shout out
Schmeg,
to
Schmeg Schmooster.
and be on the lookout for Justin's book, Awkward Andy in the building. Run out, go to the camera real quick, show him your face. Get out here real quick. Bam, that's how we end the podcast. Peace. Yo.